except I have to pay attention too. I do this all the time. I do this all the time, and I put my glasses on to see it, and it's too hard. I should give a teenager this job. It's set for judo. I'll do it again, and I will. I don't want to change it. I don't think I can. Yeah, it's set for judo. There's a lot goes on here. I don't want to take the time. I'll just pay attention. I want to talk to you about our testimony. Our testimony and the importance of testimony. As we have graduated into the next wave of divine healing, you have to remember, from my perspective, is that in order to introduce a new wave of divine healing, God simply restored my broken back and restored my knee, which has no ligaments in it, and I shouldn't be able to walk according to medicine. I said last night he removed a spirit of infirmity, which I thought was an injury. So I don't believe in miracles. I am a miracle. But among the things I have learned, and I want to remind you, is that when God does something in our lives, our testimony gives him glory. And if we credit a person who prayed for us, we're touching the glory of God. And if we don't give a testimony, we are not giving God the glory for what he is doing. And it's important for us to give God the glory, especially when he moves the way he has been moving here for the past, since 2016. When God does something, we need to give him a testimony, give him the glory, and we have to be careful not to touch the glory. I prayed for you, therefore you are healed. I have just touched the glory of God. No, I prayed for you, God healed you. There's the testimony. I don't heal anybody. I might probably, if you notice, I don't pray for you much because I don't want you to think you need me, you need Agatha, you need Isaac, you need any of our leadership to pray for you. You need God to touch you. Us touching you really doesn't mean anything. And if we do touch you and you healed, it's because God does the healing. And it's important to give the testimony to God because the testimony to God is his glory. And to not give the testimony to God is to rob him of his glory. And we do not want to rob God of his glory. In 1 Chronicles 16:8, it says, give thanks to Adonai, call on his name, make his deeds known among all the people. Make his deeds known among all the people. What's the deed? This deed is what he did for me. I could make his deeds known among the people because I give God the glory. I give God the glory. When I go to the gym, I work out extensively. People see me and they say, how's your back? I said, oh, it's totally restored. Did you have surgery? I said, no. Is it still broken? Actually, it is. God works in mysterious ways, but it's restored. It's restored. I can give God the glory, make his deeds known among the people, because my God does things now. I don't have a God who did things 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years, 20 years ago, 3 weeks ago. God is doing something now. The last time that he did a major work in my life was last night at the Holy Spirit explosion. So I want to give God the glory, make his deeds known, not just be thankful, not just call upon his name, but give him the glory. Make his deeds known, and you make his deeds known by giving a testimony of what he did for me. And what he did for me is predicated on what he has done, not what somebody else has done. A lot of big names out there. This person does this. This person has this ministry. This person has another ministry. We have a lot of friends. You say, well, this person really has a great ministry. No. God is moving. Let's not touch God's glory by giving credit to somebody else, even though God is using them. We could praise God that God is using somebody like me. He could use a donkey. He could use me. He could use you. God is moving. God is doing things. Make his deeds known. This is what God is doing right now. Right now. Because my God is alive today. Today, my testimony is not what he did last year or 2 years or 50 years ago. My testimony is what God did for me last night. It was the last time he did a tremendous healing in supernatural way to me, which happened to be demonic, which I didn't know until he told me. A word of knowledge. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. Psalm 77. The psalmist says in verse 12, I will remember the deeds of Adonai. It's not that I believe in God. I will remember his deeds. Yes, I will muse about your wonders of old. I will muse about your wonders of old. I was watching. It fascinates me how you sit in this room, particularly last night because the air conditioners are on timers and they're not turned on. It was kind of warm in here last night. It gets crowded in here. It gets a little bit warm, and you're sitting there. I was looking at a Bible study taking place in the desert in Israel where everyone's sitting in a circle of rocks. And they were doing actually a discipleship program out in the territories. Now I thought, well, you can tell they're not Americans. Ain't no AC in the desert, man. They're sitting in the desert, just sitting around on rocks. And somebody is working in the realm of discipleship. It's somebody that we're kind of attuned to. And Psalm says, I will remember your deeds. I remember your God who does something. Who does something. And I will muse about your wonders of old. Since God doesn't change, I can remember the parting of the Red Sea. I can remember the fire and smoke on Sinai. I can remember the outpouring of Spirit in Acts chapter 2. I think about the great things God has done because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. If he did that yesterday, he could do that today. He can do that tomorrow. Next verse, Joni. 13, I will meditate on all your work and consider your deeds. I want to think about a God who actually intervenes and does something. Not 1,000 years ago. I'm Jewish. I can go back thousands of years where God did something. But I'm not interested in what God did 1,000 years ago. Here's my testimony. God called my father Avram out of Ur of the Chaldeans. There's a great testimony. But that's true of many, many people. I want to say God did something last night with a word of knowledge and delivered me from a spirit of infirmity that was lodged in my hand. And now I had a lot of damage, and, I thought it was an injury. I had all the excuse in the world to hold on to it until God gave me a word of knowledge. Now, delivered, and I had to fight for it because I went home and started hurting. It's like, no. I will fight this out with warfare, absolutely warfare, to hold on to what God gave me in this broken world. And I'm not fighting the enemy. I'm fighting the world to get into God and say, no, you have delivered me. You have delivered me. I will consider your deeds. Verse 14. Oh God, your way is holy. What God is great like God? God is holy. The way he works is just mysterious. It's just mysterious. There's always new people here. With my broken back, I had all kind of issues, but I fell in this knee, and I tore all the ligaments out of it, tore them to shreds. They were gone, and they couldn't fix it, so they were going to transplant into my knee. And all of a sudden, God said, bang, no more pain, and it works. And the doctor said, that's impossible. Do another MRI. Yes, you have no ligaments. You cannot stand. You cannot walk. You can't. Well, and I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to, somebody in Tikkun at the conference, and I said, I have no ligaments. God didn't give me ligaments. He just made the knee work without ligaments. And the guy said, well, that's okay. God's going to grow new ligaments. I said, okay, but that's odd. Why is he going to grow ligaments? Why doesn't he just put them in there? His ways are not our ways. His ways are holy. What God is like our God. And here's the difference between our God and other gods. The next verse, you are a God who works wonders. You have made your power known among the peoples. What we have at Beth Messiah since 2016 is God has worked wonders among us. And many of you have been here that long. I know a lot of people have come in since 2016. God has done wonders. He made his power known among the peoples. Miracles were just flowing in here last night during the Holy Spirit explosion. Because we're trying to hone down on the reality of God among us, and we give him glory for who he is now, today. Not I became a believer in 1976. There's a great testimony. That was a long time ago. And if I haven't grown since then, I'm the most pathetic of people, and I haven't changed. Therefore, I haven't connected with God. Because God is an agent of change. And since I'm not perfected, if I haven't changed yet, I'm not working with God. Because God has to work with me until I am conformed to the image of Messiah. I'm not there yet. Therefore, God has to change me. Has to change me. My main witness to the Orthodox community, where is the change? If you have a relationship with the God of Israel, who's the creator of God, you got good religion, but where are you changed? You're better at religion than I am, but your relationship with God, where have you changed? And I love to talk to Orthodox people like that because it gets them thinking. Because I said, God wants to change us. God needs to change us if he's going to conform us to his image, to the image of Messiah, which we are called to be. And he shows by making known his power and working wonders, which he is doing. Psalm 143, I remember the days of old. I meditate on all you have done. I ponder the work of your hands. So I remember what you did. I meditate on what you have done, and I ponder what you're doing now with your hands. With your hands. This is prior to Babylon, so we talk about the hands of God. What's your hand going to see? The hand is the movement of God. I ponder what you're going to do. I ponder what's the next thing you're going to do to me. Unknowns to me, when he restored my knee, it was just like bang. It was a Tuesday evening. I went home and sat and said, well, my knee doesn't hurt. Why doesn't my knee hurt? And then when he did my back, I was a little bit like, it was obvious that he had done something. But I fight my way through it, and I do it, and it's like in my hand. You have to understand, they misdiagnosed my injury, and they went down in my knuckles and were digging around trying to get some things. And they said, this is going to hurt. And they really messed up my knuckles. And I thought, well, they did it, and they said it would hurt, and they were right, it hurt. And I'm sitting right there last night as Spirit of God, and he says, you're waiting for healing. You need deliverance. That's a spirit of infirmity. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. With a word of knowledge, now I can do the effective thing to get a deliverance from an oppressive demonic influence that settled into my right hand and move. I ponder what he's doing. I remember what he did, and since he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, he's a God of miracles. He's a God of power. He's a God who does wonders. I am going to wonder what he's going to do. Hey, Rashid. Shabbat shalom, my twin brother. Different mother, same father. I ponder the work of your hand. Psalm 145, the psalmist, who was not the most perfect person in the world, but a man after God's own heart, although he made all kinds of mistakes, like we make all mistakes. One generation will praise your works to another and declare your mighty acts. One generation. What's this generation going to pass off to the next generation? What are we going to say to the next generation? 100 years ago, God did something great. Or can we tell the song that we did? Your children, their children, Lador Vador, generation to generation. Can we tell our generations, God did something in my life? I could tell not only my children and my grandchildren who are all here. It's just that reality. They know me. They know I had a broken back. Larry was there and the Seagraves were there when I fell and just destroyed my knee. And they know God did miracles now. God is doing things now. I would declare the mighty acts of God. See, I don't have to believe in miracles. I am a miracle because God has done great things for me. And he's done it now and not just months ago when he healed my broken back and my knee. Last night when he delivered my hand and I can move my fingers. Verse 5, I will meditate on your glorious splendor, the glorious splendor of your majesty and your wonders. Agatha asked last night, what is your focus? What is your focus? Isn't that what you asked? Where are you? Yeah, you asked that. What is your focus? In the Holy Spirit explosion. What is the focus? And here it is. I meditated on the glorious splendor of your majesty and your wonders. I'm amazed at the bigness of God and the mystery of God and the wonder of God and how he intervenes in my life when I least expect it and does a glorious, marvelous, restorative, creative miracle or deliverance. Verse 6, they will speak of the might of your awesome deeds, and I will proclaim your greatness. We are to speak of the awesome deeds that God is doing to us now. Now. I mean, we could celebrate what happened during 2016. We could celebrate 6 days a week of evangelism with an international team that came in to assist us. JB's still with us, but God did a tremendous, and everyone was excited. God was moving. And then he changes over the different waves into this 7th wave. And it's like one of the small things. We go into a state prison and take a Chabad group and turn them Messianic, which brings a revival to the prison system of the state of Florida. You never know what God's going to do. You know, we got to proclaim God's greatness, his awesome deeds. Speak of the might of God now. Now. Let your testimony be what God is doing now, not just what he has done in the past. Meditate on what he has done. Proclaim his greatness today. Proclaim his greatness today. Verse 7, they will pour out the renown of your great goodness and sing joyfully of your righteousness. We have to pour out the renown of God's goodness. God moved in a powerful way last night. Numerous healings, numerous changes in people's lives. We've seen it throughout the time of the different schools we have run where God just flows through school. One of the most fascinating things that I saw was I think it was School of Breath. I gave a word of knowledge, and half the group went through deliverance like that. It's like, never saw it done that way before. Some of you were so unlearned, you didn't even know that's what was going on. But I'm telling you, God moves in mysterious ways. I'm excited. I'm joyful for what God is doing right now. I'm joyful for what God did last night. I'm more joyful for what God is going to do today because he's only going to use this service this morning. He will, for those of you who have the calling to advance in School of Breath, he will use you to do great things. And next week, we will start on the external outgoing of reaching everybody, especially the Jew first, and just make impacts on the communities that God has called out. We'll pour out the renown of your great deeds, because I'll tell you what we need to get people into the kingdom. We need signs and wonders and miracles. Greeks seek wisdom. The Jews seek a sign. And there's nothing like walking up to somebody, giving a word of knowledge, pray for them, and God heal them. That's how you bring them in the kingdom. When Yeshua sent out the 12 in the 70s, he said, go out and do ministry, not go out and preach a good message. Right? Heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, cleanse tzaraat. Go out and do things to show that God does things. Don't just learn formulas and speech, and you got to say Yeshua, not Jesus. Those are not the things. And somebody has a great gift of healing or words of knowledge or any other thing, and we give glory to the person who has the gift rather than the gift giver. They will pour out the renown of your goodness and sing joyfully of your righteousness. The reason is the next verse. Adonai is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, great in loving kindness. God is merciful to us. Verse 9, God, Adonai is good to all. He has compassion on all his creatures. As I said, we are called to all creation, but especially to the Jew. And the next verse is a summation of creation. All your works praise you, and your kedoshim, your separated ones, bless you. Verse 11, they declare the glory of your kingdom and speak of your might. This is called a kingdom center because we are not a congregation. We are a kingdom center who is here to equip you to go out and do the work of ministry and change people's lives. Like I said, we have verified almost 1,600 salvations in the past 5 years. And about 1,200 are planted in congregations other than this one. And we've had one person come to this congregation through that outreach who has a hard time getting here because of rules. But you understand, God is doing something. God is moving. We got to speak of God's might today, now, right now, because God is doing something. Not because I have a special gift of oratory or anything else. It's not. What we don't need is more knowledge. We need more power. Paul said, I didn't come to you with a lot of words. I came to you with signs and wonders. And that's how you change people. It's not the words that we learn. It's the power of the Spirit of God within us. Next verse. To make known to the sons of men his mighty acts and the glory and the majesty of his kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Be ready. How do you know it's at hand? I have to be careful. I can preach for a long time. And I'm supposed to. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 10. You are my witnesses. It's a declaration of Adonai. You are God's witnesses. And my servant whom I have chosen, speaking to Israel, supplanted at another level to the Messiah. I give that, but this is talking to Israel. So you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me no God was formed, and there was none after me. Now you can apply that to Messiah, but it doesn't matter because you're now identity with Messiah, because you're seated with Messiah in the heavenly places, and it's no longer you that live, it's Messiah that lives in you. So you have the goal and the duty and the stature and the understanding of the English, of the centrality of who I am is my identity in Messiah. I am seated with him in the heavenly realm. It's no longer I that live, it's Messiah that lives. Therefore, I have to be God's witness because I'm called to be God's witness. And I'm not God's witness to what he did 3,000-4,000 years ago. I'm God's witness to what he did now. What he did now. Isaiah 12:4. Remember, this is a time of separation. In that day you will say, give thanks to Adonai, proclaim his name, declare his works among the people so they will remember his exalted name. You know, we have on this side of the street, 25% of the Jewish community of Sarasota and Manatee County live on this side of the street. For the blocks that go down all the way to this, 10 blocks this way, Hispanic, 10 blocks that way, Jewish. We are called to reach an assimilated Jewish community. That's what JB is trying to help us work on, and it's something we meet on a lot. And, you know, what do? They have to remember who God is because we will declare his works. They don't need the knowledge of who Messiah is. They need the understanding of God is still working today. God is still working today. I was talking to a Jewish person who was a little bit, he doesn't understand why I'm messianic. Do you believe in God? Is God real? And everyone knows me. You got to be careful how you answer that. Yes. Did God talk to our father Abram? Yes. When did God stop speaking? I talk to a lot of people. And then I say, do you believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. Also, you're not Jewish. What do you mean I'm not Jewish? Why are you Jewish? I'm a descendant of Abraham. I said, God called Abraham? Well, I said, if God didn't call Abraham, you're an Iraqi. God is real. God is real now. We have to remember his exalted name. He does things. He does things. And it's open to all creation. All creation. The understanding of the assignment that we have is to reach the whole world. Especially the Jewish people, because that's our specialty. Psalm 45, thank you, Joni, 9. Adonai is good to all. He has compassion on all his creatures. All his creatures, all creation belong to God. He is good to all. And because he is good to all, verse 10, all your works praise you, Adonai, and your kedoshim, your holy ones, your separated ones, bless you. We bless you. How do we bless God? In the next verse 11, they declare the glory of your kingdom and speak of your might. I'm witnessing to God's kingdom, which is a kingdom of love, which is predicated in the power of the Creator God and the power of the resurrection of Messiah. And God is real, and God can meet your needs because God can do a miracle in your life today, to your day. It's the testimony that gives God the glory. The next verse, Joni Beth, I'm not paying, 145:12. To make the sons of men, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts and the glory of the majesty of his kingdom. To make known to the sons of men his mighty acts. One of the things that we are doing probably in the near future is that I will be missing at least a service or two because we've been asked and accepted an invitation to try to transplant what God is doing here into other, at least Florida congregations. And we have the agreement. We have the first city we're going to. And it's a question of how many people want to go with me to try to spark a different congregation. And it would be the people of the School of Breath. That would be best equipped to do that. Why? Because God's doing something. And we have a great testimony as Beth Messiah that the entire Messianic movement is watching. God is doing something. God is doing something. And see, here's the downside. They think if I come, he'll do it there. It's like I got news for him. You know this, I know this. I didn't do it. God did it. God did it. We're going to try to help them along, and it's that reality we need to make known among the sons of man God's mighty acts and the glory of the majesty of his kingdom. The kingdom of God is at hand. It's right here. God is moving. God is doing things. Psalm 66:16. Come and, is that the next one, Joni? I'm not looking at my notes. Yes, thank you. Come and listen, all you who fear God, and I'll tell you what he's done for my soul. Come and listen, all you who reverence God. I will tell you what God did for me. See, I'm in a great position right now to minister to people about divine healing because God divinely healed me of 3 different injuries. Just in the past month, God did that for me, so I have a real easy entrance in the concept of divine healing. I know God can heal you. He can restore my back when I don't have disc where I need to have disc. I'm bone on bone, and there's no cushion there. And this knee, I don't have any ligaments. They're not hooked together, and I shouldn't be able to do this. my hand, which was really crippled up with pain. It's like, no. God said, no, I want to bear out of you. I tell you what God has done for me. God has done for me. And you will never hear me. You will never hear Agatha. None of us will say, this person prayed for me and I was healed. If you notice that, when we give testimonies, we don't give credit to any person or any ministry. We do not. Because I won't touch the glory, because God doesn't share his glory. And I know who God used to orchestrate the atmosphere at the conference, but he didn't heal me. God healed me. He restored me. So come and listen, all you who reverence God. I will show you what he's done for me. What he's done for me. Then a little historic reference. During Babylonian captivity, you have the young prince Daniel, who is being used in captivity. He's a young man taken to captivity. He's not old like Yechezkel. Ezekiel was an old priest. This was a young prince. And he's telling the story of what's going on in the captivity among the eunuchs, the young men who had been taken captive. And then they're supposed to all worship the wrong God. And they said, nah, we don't do that. And it picks up in Daniel 3, verse 30. The king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego in the province of Abednego, the servant of Nego. These were all slaves. In the province of Babylon. And I have something here that doesn't begin. Go to the next verse. I put a subnote in there. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all peoples and nations, this is what the king said after the miracle of the fiery furnace. Okay? This is after the miracle of the fiery furnace. To all peoples, nations, languages that dwell on the earth. The king of an empire who saw God move in the fiery furnace incident, which I assume you know about. And remember, he threw 3 people in the fire and he saw 4 walking around and they walked out. Only 3 walked out. All there was 4 there. You could do what you want with that, but you realize the king who rules the empire of most of the known earth over there at that point in history. And he saw the miracle in the next verse, 32. He says, it seemed good to me to declare the signs and wonders that God Most High has done for me. It seemed good to me to give a testimony to God. This is a pagan king who had a lot of gods, but when he saw God doing something, signs and wonders and miraculous, he said, well, it seems good to declare the signs and wonders the Most High has done for me because he let me see this. And I will give that God testimony. That God testimony. Agatha will probably have more stories than I do because it's international stuff that gets you into these things. I will talk to somebody about the Messiah, who the Messiah is. I've done this in a few instances. And they could rise up to a level who, yes, they'll accept the Messiah. And I say, yes, but he is God. You know, they'll accept the divinity of the Messiah. So he's not divine, he is deity. I did this not terribly long ago with somebody who had accepted the Messiah. Oh, absolutely, he's very divine. I said, no, he's not. He is deity. He's like, whoa. That's totally other. I said, now you're getting closer. The king, who had a lot of gods, says, now it seems good to me to give a testimony. Because what the Most High, El Elyon, in Hebrew, he probably didn't speak Hebrew. He's probably said this in Babylonian. And it seemed good to me, the king says, of an empire, to give a testimony to what El Elyon, the God Most High, has done for me. Next verse. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. His dominion is generation to generation. There's God using a pagan king to give testimony to his greatness because of the miracle of the fiery furnace. And even a pagan king says, how great are his signs, how mighty are his numbers. Now, they didn't convince him through argument, through using the right words, for using the right outreach symbolism. Bring them to the truth of God. God did a miracle. He says, it seems like I need to give God Most High. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. Because signs and wonders catches the focus of people from, again, l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation of a pagan king, because we've got to give God the glory for what he is doing now. Even a pagan king says, it seems good that I got to say God did something because I saw the sign and wonder. I saw a sign and wonder. This is really clear. I threw them into the furnace. There's no human way possible they could have survived. I looked, there was all of a sudden 4 instead of 3, and then they walked out, and they didn't even smell smoky. I just got to give the God Most High the glory because of his great signs, his mighty wonders. God is doing something. God is doing something now. And even a pagan can see that high God is actually doing something. To him be the glory. If a pagan king can say that and react that way, how much more can we give a testimony to the greatness of what God has done for us? Now, I appreciate that God worked in our past. I appreciate that God worked for me. I could give a testimony of my bride and I, who got married in 1972. And how God was in that. But really, that was more than 50 years ago now. And the reality, the testimony, I relish in the testimony that God put us together against all the odds. Among other things, she's a Cohen. And, God works in mysterious ways, but you know what? Our testimony was God did for me last night and what he's going to do for me today and what he's doing right now. Because I didn't stop when he gave me my bride. I didn't stop when he called me into his kingdom in 1976. I didn't stop when I traveled around the world in probably around 80. Do you remember when we went all over the world? I don't remember where we went. We traveled all over the world and we're teaching at conferences and congregations everywhere. That's then. This is today. What is God doing today? You see, people don't want to hear what God did for me 10 years ago. People today, when we go out and talk to people, they don't want to hear what God did for us 5 years ago. Today, if you're going out and talk to people, you need to say the kingdom of heaven is his hand. And I can tell you his hand because he healed me. I have a broken back, but it works. I have a knee with no cartilages, but it works. I had a hand that was damaged, but it wasn't really damaged. It was demonic oppression, and God had to give me a word of knowledge to get that taken care of. God's moving right now. And we give God the glory, we give God the testimony. We give God the testimony for what he is doing right now, because if you give God the testimony, you give God the testimony. It is his glory, all to his glory, and you never touch the glory by touching the testimony of God and assigning it to any person, no matter how gifted, no matter how good, no matter how anointed. You never give testimony of a person that God used. You don't even mention it. God did something. It's like when God does something here. It's not, I don't take the credit. Agatha doesn't take the credit. Nobody takes the credit for what God does here. Nobody gets credit for what God has been doing here since 2016. A lot of us have been there. A lot of us have been heavily engaged in what God is doing here. But God is the one that's doing it. And we give God the glory, and we give God all of the understanding of the greatness of his wonders among us. And there's the truth of our testimony, which is vitally important. Be blessed, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Now, before you all leave,